Nurse bosses, get ready to be inspired by the incredible Nurse Meg. With 15 years of experience as a registered nurse, Nurse Meg Harrell is not just making waves in the healthcare industry, she's creating a tidal wave of impact through her innovative educational platform, NurseMegRN.com. As the creator of NurseMegRN.com, Nurse Meg is dedicated to providing valuable resources and support to nursing school students, NCLEX test takers, and struggling new nurses. Her commitment to education and mentorship has earned her recognition on major media platforms such as NBC, Fox News, CBS, and morning shows. But Nurse Meg's influence extends far beyond traditional media. With a strong presence on TikTok, she shares relatable content and invaluable resources for anyone in the healthcare space. Her ability to connect with her audience and provide meaningful support has made her a trusted mentor and advocate for nurses everywhere. Welcome to the Nurse Boss Shift, you guys. It's your girl, Dr. Kiiyonna Jones. And today we have yet another amazing nurse who's going to come on and drop some major gems for you guys. Nurse Meg. Nurse Meg is a nurse with 15 years of experience, and she so graciously blessed us with her presence to come in and kind of coach you guys and talk to you guys about her journey in entrepreneurship and what she's doing in the industry. Nurse Meg, welcome.
Thank you so much. I sound so old when you say 15 years. Man,
Don't feel bad. If you feel like 15 years is a lot, I've been a nurse for 16 years, so I can definitely relate to how you feel.
how did we
Yeah,
get
so
here?
we're in the same boat. I don't know. I don't know. I just feel like I've just been kind of fumbling my way through this nursing life.
Yeah.
Seriously. So, okay, Nurse Meg, I would like for you to kind of just tell us a little bit about you and your journey in nursing that led to nurse entrepreneurship.
Yeah. All right. So I guess I can start from like the very, very, very beginning. My parents are immigrants from Cuba. They came over here, and my dad decided to get a nursing degree. He's like, this is secure healthcare. I'm going to get a good job for my family. So he kind of inspired me to become a nurse. Growing up, he would show me everything he was doing. He like introduced me to anatomy and physiology. He was always teaching me this kind of stuff. So it just felt natural. Of course, I'm going to go into nursing. And I thought, oh, it's going to be so easy. I grew up with this. It was not easy. And I thought, oh, this 2 year degree, so many people get it. This is going to be like such an easy degree. It is not an easy degree to get. I mean, I didn't get into nursing school the first couple times that I applied. And I did LPN first and then lived some life, saved up, got my RN, eventually got my BSN. And I've worked really nearly every department and really struggled as a brand new nurse and was really watching my fellow nurses struggle during the pandemic. And that's kind of when I started to create my little website, my little corner of the internet. I started a TikTok because that was kind of, that was the thing in 2020. Everybody was on that platform. So I started to make just educational videos. This is how you give great report. This is what the ER wants you to know. This is the first 10 things you got to do in a code to make sure it's successful. Just little things like that that I really struggled with as a brand new nurse that you just don't learn in school. You learn the hard way. And why do people have to learn the hard way? So I wanted to make sure that these new nurses were getting a good foundation. And then I also saw this epidemic of people not passing the NCLEX because they were graduating during this really difficult time. So I started to tutor people to help them pass the NCLEX, and then it turned into online courses and more online platforms and a website, and it kind of just grew and grew from there. And then now we have platforms on every single social media platform. We have a website. We have online courses that are hosted online. We've had over 500,000 people use our free report sheet for all of our departments.
Wow.
Yeah, we've helped right around 4,000
Oh my
students to pass the
gosh.
NCLEX. It's just been really,
Oh
really
my
exciting
gosh.
to make a difference in this next generation of nurses.
I must say, there's something to be said about a nurse that dare to go back to the place that we run from. It's like once you pass that NCLEX, nobody wants to look back at that sucker,
No.
especially not me. It's like, oh, I passed. That's done. Like moving on. But I love that you said, okay, I see a need and I'm going to go deeper and really try to help. And we just celebrated our 60th episode. And one of the common themes that we hear over and over again from nurses that we're interviewing, which is also true for Crystal and I, is that we are servants. So that same servitude that they try to position us in that caps at a certain amount and then we just continue to give. I feel like us going and taking that same belief and that same those same ideas and serving the multitudes, but without having that cap on the earning potential is where we all should be. It's like, what do you do great? Take that and help people like genuinely from a place of like service, but then you're not locked into like, okay, we'll give you 3% a year, or like, no, you didn't do that, so you didn't meet, or whatever it is that they do and the competencies that we have to take. We can take it and make it our own, and these platforms has given us that.
Yes.
So you made a statement that you went from like just giving free value, which we always tell people to do first. Like we're like everyone is good at something. Like, and you're a nurse, so don't tell me you're not good at anything. You're good at something. So you take that and then you give. And was that a part of like, how did you decide, like, okay, I'm just going to go on TikTok and start, telling people how to do create these reports? You like, well, what was your mindset like when you went through
Yeah.
that journey?
I really think it came from a place of fear of seeing all of the old people like me retire when the pandemic hit and seeing all these new nurses come in, not getting enough training.
Yeah.
And I mean, there were nurses that they were training for four
Mm,
weeks, putting them and having brand new nurses out of school, having them take patients after 4 weeks of
mm,
like training by another new nurse. And I was like,
yeah.
we're going to
Yeah.
lose, I get goosebumps talking about this. We're going to lose an entire generation of
Yeah.
nurses. I'm freaking out. Like, I want to be
Mhm.
proud to be a nurse. I want this next generation to be stronger than the next. And I started to freak out. So I thought,
Mhm.
what can I do not only to reach the nurses that are coming into like my hospital, but how can I affect this entire next generation so that the pandemic doesn't wipe out this career? And so that's how it started, just free stuff. What principles do I use when I train new nurses, or what practice questions can I put for free on my website? All of my original free stuff is still free on my website, but then it came down to, we really need to get deeper into training. This is taking more of my time. This needs to be a little bit more polished. And that's when it transitioned into, oh, this is a business.
Yes, yes. Now, okay, so you went through like, so it all started with a why, and we always tell people that too. Like, you got to start with your why, and your why has to be bigger than you. Because if you focus on money, you're going to give up the minute it get hard. The minute you're not bringing in enough money, you're going to quit. So you found the why, then you start giving free value. Then you realize, oh, I have stumbled on this business. Like, oh, serendipity, like I have a business here.
Yeah.
And then what was the next step?
So the next step was to learn everything that you need to learn to have an online business. I realize there's a lot of people out there with online courses and online businesses, but no one can articulate it and deliver it in the way that you can. So anytime people are like, "Oh, don't do that. It's so oversaturated," or, "Oh, there's already somebody out there doing that." No, no, no. Think about all of the brands of Cheerios and the off-brand Cheerios. They're all still successful. They're all still making money because they're doing it in their own way and their own demographic. No one can do it like you. So that's kind of where it started of, okay, how do I teach? I teach in like this very informal, non-textbook way with a little bit of cursing and a little bit of just real life examples. Because I'm teaching like I'm talking to my friend. My notes and my study guides, it's like I'm texting it to a friend. It's going to be concise, there's no fluff. And then I started to learn SEO, search engine optimization for my website, and how are other people hosting courses? What are all the platforms? What can I afford right now? And then building from there and learning Google Analytics, the traffic of your website, or learning the TikTok algorithm. How can I reach more people? Do I and paying attention to your analytics is so important, whether it's on your website or on social media. Who is following you? Talk directly to that person. And then what are the demographics? When do they see you? Do you get more followers or engagement when you do a live? All right, you got to be doing more lives. That's how they want to see you, and show up how your audience wants to see you, know them, and then just deliver from there.
I love it. And honestly, your story and your path is very typical of us as nurses who dare to do something different, right? Because I always say everything that we have been taught in school is to indoctrinate us to one destination. And to dare to venture outside of that takes a lot of courage and a little bit of crazy, is what I say,
Yes.
because who would go against the norm and like do something different when all you've known is this one path, which is to become an employee, and then you dare. And then on top of that, you use TikTok, which is like taboo. Can you tell us
Yeah.
about that part?
Yeah, I mean, I was on TikTok like everybody else was during the pandemic. Just, it was a fantastic escape. It was great. But realizing it was more than just like a little dance app, there were little pockets of the internet living there. There were all ages, all types of businesses, demographics, interests, people doing gardening, people doing makeup tutorials. I was like, oh, this is kind of where everybody's hanging out. It was kind of like if you had if you wanted to create a billboard for a certain audience, they were already there. So I got really specific on who I was talking to. So I would start out videos like, this video is for a last semester nursing student who's trying to pass their ATI or HESI exit exam. These are the things that you should be doing. Like really being specific. And TikTok, the algorithm was so generous compared to, let's say, other platforms like Instagram. It was like taking it exactly the right video to the exact right audience. And as soon as I saw success, I was like, okay, I'm just going to keep going and keep going.
And did you have any, were you still employed? Like, I don't even know, are you employed? Are you full-time entrepreneur now? Or what's your status? Are
Yes,
you per diem or?
this year, well, there's still, there's always the backup, the PRN, like, oh, I can always go back.
Right.
No, this,
Exactly.
as of last year, I'm 100% into this business. This is what I want to put my entire self into, all of my attention, all of my years of experience into
Yeah.
this now.
Yes, I love that. And so, when you started, did you experience any type of pushback, or were there any problems with leadership at your organization? Because especially when you start blowing up, because they don't like that, right? So you start getting bigger and people, and now you're more popular than the CEO or the whomever, and you're making more money. So how does that, how did that go?
It was definitely very like on the down low, very like hush hush. I'm not sharing stuff at work except for my free printouts. Hey guys, don't you want help? It was less, I think some people that get popular on social media, it's a little bit about like their personality and it's like a celebrity type thing. For me, it was just, I'm delivering education. That's the point of it. I'm delivering free resources, education. I'm your nurse mama. Let me help you. So it wasn't too much pushback or jealousy or anything like that because it wasn't like a celebrity thing really at all. But I mean, every facility is very strict with, do not film at work. Do not take supplies. You're going to hear that a lot with anybody who's popular on social media. They're like, don't wear that badge. Don't film at work. Don't film on the clock.
And I love that you mentioned that you started in about 2020, and like you that mean up until 2023 you were still working, or at least being a PRN princess if towards the end, but like you were still working. And like that's what people don't understand, like especially nurses. I think there's, well, not I think, I know based on my time in the community and just like going to events, and people think you have to quit. You do not have to quit your job. Can you talk about that? Like, where did you get to? And I feel like this is what I tell people, because I've been an entrepreneur full time since 2021. My straw was I took an 8-week travel assignment during COVID. And that's when I was like, this is
Oh.
it. I'm done. I don't care what, right? So I was done. Now I go back for my family. I would absolutely go back if I needed to, don't get me wrong. But I definitely put the nail in the coffin. But I always tell people it's a personal journey. Crystal still works per diem right now, and she's been an entrepreneur since like 2020. And it's a real personal. So I don't push like quit the bedside, stop working. I'm like, listen, just give yourself options. That's the first goal is like get started and see where it leads you. You don't know what stage you might end up on, who you might connect with. You don't know. But I do feel like it's a personal journey. So my question for you is what where were you? Like what happened where you made the decision like now is the time?
Yeah, I think when you're working full time, I have two kids, a wife. I have a totally different job that I also do on the side that's related to travel journalism. And so there's lots of like irons in the fire. I think the best way to fuel your next dream is whatever you're doing now, that's going to pay for your next dream. Because you need capital, you need money, you have to fuel your next dream. So you can't always just stop what you're doing and do a 180. You have to use this to fuel your next dream. And the best way to do it is, at least for me, is whatever you use for like entertainment and escape. So maybe that's like TV, scrolling online, whatever that is. Now replace that with building your next dream. So if it was an hour or two each night or an hour when you wake up in bed, replace that time with then doing a little thing every day, just an hour a day to build that next dream or that next business or wherever you want to be next.
Hmm. And did you feel like I say also it's a point where your job is in the way of your business and you're never ready, but you realize like, okay, either I'm going to go all in or I'm not because you plateau until you can give yourself 100% to your business. Did you
Yeah.
experience that?
Yeah, absolutely. So there is a time where you start to see the scale tipping and you see one thing as like in the way and you see the job clocking in, showing up, the lack of sleep, working night shift. That brings you no more joy, no more satisfaction, and you're starting to want to put more time into this other thing. And you're like, this actually like fuels me. It brings me joy. It's giving me life. And when that scale starts to tip, you got to look at the numbers and sometimes you just got to be brave and say, I'm going to do it. This is the decision. So when you see like your joy fading and you see one thing like just sucking the life out of you, that's when you're like, I should not keep this in my life. That's when you just jump off a cliff.
That. I love it. I love it. So you made the decision and you were like, okay, I'm going all in, right? I'm in it.
Yeah.
Now, you've been featured on all of these major media outlets. Did that happen before or did that happen after you made the decision? Like, at what point did you start getting all these large, opportunities with these media outlets?
It really did happen after. And I don't know if it was like a sign from the universe being like, do it. You made the right decision, or what it was. But it was definitely confirmation and made me feel so much more confident in my decision to let go of that steady paycheck and the health insurance and all the things that make me feel nice and secure to then try to reach for something higher and better. So everything came so randomly. Um, it would be a morning show would come to me and say, "Hey, we're talking about this random thing. Can you speak on this? Do you want to show up?" Um, or a podcast or NBC News calling me saying, "Do you want to comment on this?" And a lot of it was just finding me on social media. Being active on social media is how they found me.
Yes, yes, I love that. And all of this because and I always say it's just about a decision. Like you made a decision. I'm sure you felt like when you decided to go on TikTok, like, what am I doing on here? And then you soon got validation that There are plenty of people in here. It's not, we used to look at, and I'm sure you're very much so, you've been a nurse as long as I have. So I know when TikTok first came out, I'm like, that's for little, like, that's for young people, little kids. Like, I'm
Yes.
not interested. And then you
Yeah.
took, you, against the limiting beliefs, you decided to show up and look at what it has created. And I bet you could not have even envisioned this or dreamed this for yourself if you had a magic wand. Like, you could not have thought
Oh
you would
no.
end up here.
No, definitely not. Also, sometimes you have a vision of like what you want to do, like what my vision was
Hmm.
to help this generation. And I was like, oh, I hope like 1,000 people get this report sheet, or I hope like 100 people use my questions or something like that. And then it's
Wow.
always bigger than you can dream. Always. No matter
Even
what like
dream.
crazy thought
Yeah,
that I
for
have,
sure. I
wouldn't it be
agree.
so crazy if, yep, no, it could totally happen. You never know what's around that corner. Um, but yeah, I did feel
Yes.
too old to be there when I downloaded that app. Like,
Yeah,
I'm too old.
for sure. I still do. TikTok is not my biggest, like, my platform is Instagram, but even I feel like when I go on, I'll be like, okay, what am I doing? What do I do? Do I go live? I don't know. Like, because I get confused with TikTok because when I go on there, and it could be just my algorithm, but like, I see some crazy stuff on these lives, and I'm like, wait a minute, somebody is sleeping on a mattress on a floor in a such a, like, how do I get my position in that? I don't know.
I do love that. It is like an algorithm that learns you. So the more like nurse stuff that you look
Okay.
at or what you search, it almost like starts to curate your little For You page, your little corner to exactly what you want it to be. So it does take a little bit of time.
Okay, I
You
got you.
do
So
have
you
to
gotta
like sit on
train
there
it,
for a
like
little.
you train
Yeah.
the algorithm. Oh, okay. So probably I'm not even on it enough to kind of get that. Okay, so can you share with us, like, and I want to come from because I do feel like as nurses, we are definitely led by giving and service. Can you give us an example of, like, a moment that you will never forget where you impacted one of your clients and you're like, dude, this is why I've done it. Can you tell us about that story and take us with
Yeah.
you?
Yeah. So a lot of people were finding me in 2023, early 2023, because the NCLEX completely changed. They created the next generation NCLEX. So the test bank, the categories, everything changed in that year. A lot of people were not passing the NCLEX, and a lot of people were like, how do I study differently? Is it really a new test? Yes, it's a totally new and different way to study. And I had this one student, Jordan, who had used every other NCLEX test prep out there. Like whatever you see advertised, she used it, paid for it, and would still fail. She failed 6 times. And then she made a video, she made a TikTok crying like, I don't know what to do. She was like A's and B's in nursing school. She's not a dumb person. She knows how to be a nurse. She couldn't pass this test. So I saw that video on my For You page because that's the stuff that I want to see is nursing students and people that need NCLEX help. And I DM'd her and I said, hey, I want to give you my course for free. And I want to make sure that you're utilizing it well, that you're watching the lecture content, that you're reading those study guides. I want to help you to pass on attempt number 7. I know I can help you to pass. And she didn't answer me for like a week. And I was like, oh, this is like a lost cause. And then she DM'd me back finally. And she was like, yeah, okay, sure. Like, here's my email. Right away, gave her access, emailed her, and was like, book a free call with me. Let's talk. Let's make sure that you know what to do and let's add some other elements to it because my course doesn't have just have content, it has a lot of like mental health and how to train your mind and your body to not have a stress response, how to control test anxiety, and then also a lot about strategy. So when I would like talk to her and we would kind of go back and forth, she knew her content backwards and forwards. Like I could spit out any drug, any diagnosis, and she would like teach it back to me. I'm like, this is amazing. What would happen with her is she would get so anxious that she would release so much cortisol, be in so much brain fog, She'd make all these silly mistakes, and then she had no test strategy. She didn't know how to take a standardized test. So, a big part of what I added to my program after working with her was learning test strategy. How do you even take a test? How do you eliminate wrong answers? How do you get in the mind of the person who wrote it? And then I was able to help her pass 30 days later on her seventh attempt. And then she got a job in CVICU, amazing nurse. And it was like, what? Like I was able to do what other people were not able to do. And she was about to like give up after going to school for 4 years. She was like, maybe nursing's not for me. And I'm like, oh, I will always remember Jordan in my brain that I helped her pass that seventh time.
That's absolutely amazing because I feel like all of your backstory, your history prepared you for that moment. And see, that's what the thing people don't realize. We don't realize. I know we're in it, we're just kind of doing it, but it's when you are pushed to the brink of like, I need to get help this person, or I have to do something that just way outside of what you feel comfortable with, and you do it, and then they get the result. It's validation. It's like, okay, so I do know what I'm talking about, right?
Yes, it makes you feel like
That's I
this
feel
is
that
my
all every
purpose.
time I Yes, yes. Every time someone, because I have a mentorship where I help nurses launch med spas, and every time either I go to a launch or someone launches out of the state, because I help nurses all over the states, but I'm like, yes, like, okay, it does work. Like, it still validates me for me, just like, okay, I do know what I'm talking about every time there's a launch. So I know having her, especially who passed 6 times, that was putting you out there, because like, what if she didn't pass, right? On
I
that
know,
seventh
what
time
if?
to be like, oh shoot.
I know, but I
But
felt
she
so
did,
confident.
which
I was
just
like,
makes the
I know it,
story. Yeah,
right? She was A's and B's in
yeah,
school, and
yeah.
I really felt confident in what I had created because I've been working on it since 2020. And kind of even before that, I would just
Mm,
tutor people that would come here and there. I felt so confident in like my product and what I had, and she was willing to try it. And I was like, I got this.
hmm
I know I can get you to the other side.
I love that. So let's say, okay, so our listeners are aspiring and new entrepreneurs. Some are seasoned, but for the most part, they're aspiring and they're new, right? And so what I know about my listeners is they're gonna hear your story and be like, well, of course she could do it. She has 700,000 followers on TikTok. Well, of course she can do it. She has it. Like they'll always try to make it so that, of course, you can and they can't to get themselves off the hook. And I like to put them on the hook, right? To realize that if you can do it, they can do it. Just like if I can do it, they can do it. So my question to you is considering if we were to go back to where you started, what would you say is the biggest lever that they should be focused on now? Because just a little caveat, did you have a background in like as a teacher or anything like that before you got into this space? Did you? Okay, so you were not a
No,
teacher or okay, because I'm just trying to think of all the reasons they would try to justify. And you had a mission because of something you saw in 2020, or potentially could have led to in 2020 because so many people were leaving, and then you
yeah,
saw a space in the marketplace and you provided a solution, is what I see it as. Now,
yeah.
high level, looking back, what would you say they should do now, or what would be or have been or could have been the biggest lever for you, or how or needle mover that every position should take right now?
Yeah, I think something that one of my friends told me was there's somebody less qualified, less intelligent than you living their dream. So you need to be
Period.
brave, and done is better than perfect. So don't wait until your little thing is perfect.
Ooh,
Don't wait until your website is perfect. Done is better than perfect. So go. And
yes,
where
yes,
I was working full time, mother, my two kids were very young. I was working a whole other job
yeah,
doing journalism, flying to all over the place, doing travel stuff, and started a travel blog, worked with a bunch of people, resorts, Disney. I had my plate was full. I was done working,
yeah,
nursing and working the
yeah,
travel journalism, two kids, a husband. You would think no one has time for
yeah,
this. But if you have a mission and a passion, That's what drives you. You don't
Mhm.
necessarily need the time
Yeah.
or the perfect stage of life, or you don't need any of that. You can have your plate completely full.
Yeah.
You just need that mission and that passion to drive you.
Yeah. I always say like, because I know nurses are such empaths, most of us, I'm generalizing, but most of us are. I always say you said you had 500,000 people download your cheat sheet. That would have been 500,000 people who would have not had that opportunity and not received that cheat sheet had you allowed your fears to prevent you from doing or going forward, right? TikTok, all that. If you had allowed that to win, you wouldn't have been able to help all those people. And I think that right there speaks volumes. So even if you don't want to do it for you, do it for the people you're serving.
Yes. And then you have to think of that ripple effect, because the nurses that will, let's say, for example, that use my report sheet, they've never been to the NICU, they use my NICU report sheet, and then they're able to organize the patient information, better patient outcomes, and then they use that when they train the next nurse. And then the next nurse, again, gets a better foundation. Your passion can have a ripple effect that you can't even measure.
Yeah, yeah, that is so true. Nurse Meg, listen, so I know you're on TikTok and you are crushing it on TikTok. I have to ask you this since you're at 700K followers. What's going on? Is it really gonna close down or not?
I don't know. I think I think we have bigger problems. I tried to read the whole like deposition and stuff and the reasoning that if they were ever to be
Uh-huh.
successful, it wouldn't eventually go into effect until like 2026. And then they would have to get all the
Okay.
carriers to agree to it, like Apple to be like, okay, it's not allowed. So it seems like there's too much red tape. We
Oh,
got bigger
okay.
problems. My
Ah,
prediction is
okay,
it's going to
that's
hang
good.
around.
Okay, awesome, awesome, awesome. I love that. All right, and so before we like conclude, can you give our what's one thing that they should do? What's a takeaway that you feel like looking back, even with all your success, had you done A sooner or B sooner, you'd have gotten there a little faster, or if you feel like it could really affect or improve their trajectory to enter into entrepreneurship or grow as an entrepreneur, what would you say that is that they should do?
Ooh. For growth, I do think that everybody's looking to, what do I invest in? And a lot of people think they need to invest in ads first. And the best thing for me for growth really was to make a list of everything that I need to do in a day, in a week, in a month. So whether it's content creation, whether it is customer support, all of that, make that list and then highlight what only you can do. So if it's a lecture, only I can record the lecture and create that content, right? All the other things, customer support, reposting things, all the other stuff, you can hire out. You need to get some help. VAs are super, super helpful for those little tasks, answering emails or pitching, negotiations, things like that. You can hire that stuff out. Figure out what only you can do and hire out the rest. That was a better investment than ads on social media or even Google pay-per-click ads for sure.
Yeah. And okay, since you said that, I just have one last little piece to that. Okay, so what would you tell someone who feels like they don't know anything? Like it's like I'm just a nurse. I don't know how to pass in I barely passed myself, or I took it 2 or 3 times before I passed. Like I don't feel comfortable with teaching somebody that. So how do they find their thing, or at least the starting thing?
Yeah, sometimes it's hard to self-evaluate, especially as nurses or sometimes as women, to self-evaluate and see what we're really good at. We're always trying to look for what's that thing we got to improve or what's the thing that's not perfect with me. You really got to self-evaluate and pay attention to what other people around you are saying. Let's say at work, everyone's like, man, you always read those EKGs so quick. You always know what rhythm that is. Oh my God, that's what you're good at. Create an online course how to read EKGs because you could do it better than most people. Whatever you personally lean towards that you're better at, focus on that and lean towards that. Sometimes it's also what could you talk about for an hour if they were just like you had no preparation, just go stand up there and talk about what you like to talk about or what you happen to be good at in your job or at life. that's your thing. And no one can teach it the way that you can. No one can articulate it the way that you can. So you got to pay attention to what you're good at.
Yes, agree. And I always say you are the secret sauce. I could give you the recipe to the pound cake, but it's something that's gonna make it taste a little different if you make it versus I make it. So stop worrying about what other people are doing because they cannot replicate or be you. And that's, I think, what a lot of people miss. So thank you, thank you, thank you for that. Thank you for joining us on the podcast. Please tell everyone how they can find you. I know you have nursemeg.rn.com. And so tell us all of your platforms and your courses. If you have any special offers, by the way, we'll have them in the show notes, but go ahead and tell them here.
Yeah, my main website is nursemegrn.com. That's where you can find all the free resources, the courses, the free articles and direction. And then you can also find ways to book a call with me. We do free 15-minute calls if you need any advice on getting into school, passing school, your NCLEX, or you're just a brand new nurse looking for direction. Please book a call with me or my team. We give free advice all the time. And then you can find me on TikTok, on Instagram, on Twitter, or whatever they want to call it now, YouTube. I'm on all the platforms, Pinterest. I've got something for everybody,
Love
whatever your
it.
favorite platform is.
I love it, love it. Okay, awesome. So we are going to link all of that in the show notes, you guys. But again, as always, if you enjoyed this episode, don't be stingy and do not gatekeep. Share it with your friends, your nurse friends, and the like. And also subscribe to our channel. If you're not on the YouTube channel, don't forget we're on YouTube as well. So go ahead and subscribe to us there. Everything you need will be in the show notes. And don't forget if you have any comments, if you want to tell Nurse Meg how amazing this interview was. By the way, it was very amazing and full of value. So if you found it valuable, comment and we'll make sure we get that to Nurse Meg just to let her know the impact she's making in the community. Until next time, you guys, we're gone. Take care. Bye.